Hey folks, thanks for dropping by to hear this tale. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, take a quick second to do it. It keeps this little corner of the internet alive. And while you're at it, toss a comment below and tell me where you're tuning in from. Together, we'll stare down the shadows and unravel the weirdness. So, let's get started. I'm a late-night radio jockey at a tiny station perched on the edge of civilization, where the signal barely reaches past the cornfields. My show's not exactly breaking the charts. It's the kind of thing you stumble across at 3 a.m. when sleep won't come and the dial's your only friend. We talk about UFO sightings, small-town ghost stories, and the oddball who swears something's lurking out by the old grain silo. This is my account of the first 12 hours after everything went sideways, straight from the flickering glow of my broadcast booth. It might be the last story I ever tell, so listen close. I'm not sure who's out there, but if you're hearing this, you need to know what happened. It all kicked off on a night that felt like any other. The clock was ticking toward 11:54 p.m., and I was slouched in my beat-up swivel chair, letting the station's preloaded playlist drone on. Outside, the sky was clogged with clouds so thick you couldn't spot a star if you tried. A heavy, oppressive kind of night that's par for the course in my gig. Callers love that vibe. They'll ring in about strange glows over the woods or tracks in the mud that don't look quite human, always swearing the air felt off before they saw it. My routine was simple. Snag a mug of lukewarm coffee, flip through the local headlines, and wait for the hour to roll over so I could go live. My tech wizard, Lena, handled the behind-the-scenes magic, patching calls through, keeping the signal steady. We didn't chat much in person. Our booth and her control room were split by a soundproof glass pane, but she'd always toss me a quick wave before ducking out for her break. That night, though, she never made it that far. Right at midnight, I flipped the mic switch. The on-air sign hummed to life, casting a red haze over the cramped space. I cleared my throat and leaned in. Hey there, night owls. You're back with Midnight Static on WXRV. This is Jace, your guide through the witching hours. Got a tale to share? Give us a shout. Let's make the world listen. My voice bounced faintly off the booth's walls, and almost instantly, the phone lines blinked awake. 2, then 3 calls, pretty standard for the kickoff. Lena patched one through, and a guy's voice crackled over the air, shaky and out of breath, like he'd sprinted to the phone. Am I on? Can you hear me? He panted. You're live on WXRV. Who's this? I replied, settling into my host groove. Name's Travis. I don't know how long I've got. Something's going down outside my place. People are, I don't know, sick? Messed up? I saw this group corner a lady in the lobby downstairs, and the line fizzed with static, cutting him off mid-sentence. I shot a glance through the glass at Lena, expecting her to signal something. A dropped call, maybe, but she was hunched over her own phone, frowning. I pressed on. All right, Travis, take it easy. Where you calling from? Downtown, by the old strip mall. Sirens have been wailing nonstop for an hour. I tried 911, nothing but a busy tone. My neighbor said it's a riot, but he trailed off, voice trembling. I saw them, Jace. It's not a fight. They're biting people. I can't even. The call dropped dead. Normally, I'd shrug it off as a prank. My show's a magnet for weirdos spinning yarns. But something about Travis stuck with me, like a bad frequency humming in my skull. Before I could shake it off, another line lit up. A woman's voice, tight with panic. I'm locked in my car. People in the parking lot are going nuts, attacking each other. Then a security guard from the multiplex downtown, swearing a crowd of moviegoers turned on him out of nowhere, like they'd flipped a switch. Within 10 minutes, I had half a dozen calls piling up, all painting the same picture. Folks acting feral, lunging at anything that moved. Some callers said the attackers looked drained, almost lifeless. Others mentioned welts or cuts on their skin. It didn't feel like a coordinated gag. This was too raw, too chaotic. I peeked at the clock, 12:20 a.m. The switchboard was a Christmas tree of blinking lights. More calls than I'd ever seen at once. Lena's voice buzzed through the intercom. "Jace, this is wild. I've never heard anything like it. Should I start filtering these?" I shook my head, forgetting she couldn't see me. "No, keep him coming. Something's up out there. I can feel it." I switched on the local news stream, hoping for a shred of context, but all I got were vague blurbs about unrest in the area. If entire neighborhoods were erupting into whatever this was, why wasn't it headline news? Then, at 12:30 a.m., an emergency alert sliced through every frequency, a piercing tone that made my pulse spike. I leaned toward the screen as text crawled across. "Emergency alert. Residents, remain indoors. Secure all doors and windows. Authorities are addressing a surge in violent incidents. Stand by for updates." No details, no explanation, just a cold order to hunker down. "We've got to reach someone official," I said into the intercom. "Cops, FEMA, anybody." "Already tried," Lena shot back, her tone stretched thin. "Busy signals everywhere." Our station sat on a wooded rise just beyond the town's sprawl, quiet, cut off, the kind of place you don't think twice about locking up tight. The front gate was bolted, the main door keycard only. But now, that isolation felt like a noose tightening. Lena poked her head into the booth, her face pale under the fluorescent buzz. "Power's holding, but the phones are going haywire. So many calls, I can't keep up." She wasn't exaggerating. Every time I cut one caller loose, 3 more rang in. Screams, pleas, garbled accounts of carnage on their blocks. I aired as many as I could, clinging to the idea that my voice might help someone, somewhere, stay alive. But then, around 1 a.m., the lights flickered. The booth dimmed, snapped back, and Lena and I locked eyes. If the power crapped out, we'd be stuck with the backup generator, and that tank wasn't bottomless. Lose that, and we'd fade to black. At 1:15 a.m., a call came through that still haunts me. The line rang. I nodded to Lena, and a man's voice cut in, steady, almost too calm. "Am I on the air?" "You are." "Who's this?" I asked, gripping the mic. "Jordan, long-haul driver. I'm on Highway 14, a few miles west of town. Anyone listening needs to hear this. The off-ramps are clogged, people ditching their cars, running. I saw a pack of Call M infected. They swarmed a family trying to hoof it from their SUV. Couldn't stop, had to keep rolling." His breath hitched. One turned my way, eyes like nothing was home. I swallowed hard, the silence pressing in. "Think it's safe to drive out of there?" "If you're fast, maybe. But these things, they're spreading. Crossing lanes, heading every which way. No safe route left." The line went quiet, and that stillness hit harder than any scream. I tried to keep my on-air cool, but inside, my gut was churning. Virus? Madness. The alerts weren't saying, and whatever it was moving like wildfire. Lena appeared in the doorway, clutching a cordless phone. Downtown newsroom just went dark. They mentioned evacuating. Then, nothing. Her eyes flicked to mine. "Should we bail?" I hesitated. "And go where?" "Roads are a mess. And if people are turning violent," I didn't finish. The truth was, we might be safer holed up here. Then a bang echoed from the outer hall. We both flinched. It was just Ray, our night watchman, back from his rounds. He stepped into view, looking wiped. "What's happening?" My phone's buzzing with alerts, but I didn't see anything outside, yet. "We're staying put," I said, firm as I could muster. "For now." From 2 a.m. to 4 a.m., the calls didn't let up. I kept the mic hot, trying to be a lifeline in the madness, but every story gnawed at me. A dad hiding in his garage, whispering about his kids downstairs. A woman barricaded in her office, watching shapes shuffle past her window. The voices got wilder, more broken. Some just wept until the line cut. By 4:15, exhaustion was clawing at me. I switched to a looped emergency message and stumbled into the control room. Lena was slumped in her chair, the switchboard glowing like a war zone. "You okay?" I asked, voice soft. She snorted, a brittle sound. This is insane. Before I could answer, Ray burst in, face tight. Trouble. Something's slamming the back fence, hard. Didn't talk, just kept hitting it. Shine my light, and it bolted into the trees. My heart thudded. You didn't see it? Nope, just heard it. The station wasn't a castle, tall fence, solid doors, but not invincible. If those things found us, how long could we hold out? Dawn was creeping closer, a faint gray smudge on the horizon, but it didn't feel like salvation. The city was slipping away, and we were stuck on this hill, voices in the dark, waiting for the next crack in the night. By 5 a.m., a dull glow was seeping through the station's grimy windows. The sky was shifting from pitch black to a sickly gray, but it didn't bring any comfort. The phone lines were still buzzing like angry wasps, each call a jagged shard of the chaos swallowing the city. I'd been on air for hours, voice hoarse, trying to keep some kind of calm flowing through the mic. But every story, every scream, chipped away at me. I flipped the switch back on, leaning into the broadcast. This is Jace with WXRV, still here at 5:04 a.m. To anyone listening, we're holding steady, but things are falling apart out there. Official word is to stay inside, lock everything down. If you've got a safe spot, don't move. Stay with me, we'll figure this out. A burst of static jolted me, then a voice cut through, one I recognized. Jace? It's Travis again. My mind scrambled for a second before it clicked. The guy from downtown, the first caller who'd set this whole thing off. Travis, you're back. You holding up? I said, a flicker of relief cutting through the haze. Barely, he rasped. Power's out in my building. It was madness in the halls, people running, fighting. I'm barricaded in a storage room up top now. He paused, breath ragged. Jace, the ones who got attacked, they're getting back up. But they're not right. They're like the others now, joining them. You can't talk to them, can't reason with them. A cold prickle ran down my spine. You somewhere safe? Can you get higher, maybe the roof? Top floor's all I've got. There's a little window. I can see the street. Smoke's rising, Jace. Parts of the city are burning. If anyone's out there, watch out for the scratched up ones, the bitten ones. They don't stay human. The line crackled and died again. I stared at the mic, the weight of his words sinking in. Lena stepped into the booth, her face blank, like she'd run out of room for shock. She'd heard it all. Burning, she muttered, almost to herself. What the hell is this? No clue, I said, voice low. But it's not stopping. Around 6 a.m., our luck took a hard turn. The main power coughed and gave out. Lights dimmed, screens flickered, and for a heartbeat, we were swallowed by darkness. Only the faint red of emergency backups kept us from total blackout. Ray bolted to the back, cursing under his breath as he fired up the generator. Lena stayed in the control room, flipping switches like a mad conductor, coaxing the essentials back to life. I sat there, mic off, pulse pounding in my ears. If that generator quit, we'd be voiceless, a silent speck in a falling world. After a tense minute, the lights sputtered on, weak but steady. I let out a shaky breath. We're still in the game, I told Lena through the glass. She nodded, but her eyes were darting to the shadows beyond the booth. The generator was a lifeline, but it wasn't infinite. Fuel gauge was already ticking down. From 6:30 to 7:15 a.m., the calls kept rolling in, each one echoing Travis's story. A kid hiding in a supermarket closet, whispering about footsteps outside. A guy on a second-floor balcony, watching pale figures stumble through the streets, drawn to any noise. The picture was sharpening. Something was spreading, turning people into mindless hunters. And once they changed, they didn't come back. The sky lightened to a pale, washed-out gray, but the city's soundtrack, sirens, horns, the faint thrum of choppers, never quit. I stayed on air, knees jittering under the desk, trying to sound steady. Jace here, WXRV, pushing through at 7:20 a.m. If you're hearing me, stay quiet, stay hidden. Whatever's out there, It's drawn to sound, movement. We're still getting reports, folks turning after attacks. Don't take chances. My voice was fraying, but I kept going. It was all I had. Then Ray came back from another sweep of the grounds, his face tighter than before. Checked the back again. Saw footprints, fresh ones, running from the fence to the building. Didn't catch who made him. You didn't see them? I asked, dread pooling in my gut. He shook his head, grim. Gone by the time I looked. But they're out there, circling. The doors were locked, the fence tall, but safe, felt like a flimsy word. We were trapped, no orders from the outside beyond that looped alert, stay indoors. No rescue, no plan, just us and a dwindling fuel tank. By 8 a.m., we were running on fumes, literally and figuratively. Lena scrounged up some supplies from the break room, a case of water, a box of stale granola bars, a couple protein shakes. Enough for a day, maybe two if we stretched it. The real clock was the generator. When it died, we'd be cut off. No signal, no contact. We decided to switch to a single feed, a looped recording of my voice with basic survival tips, breaking only for live calls. It'd save power, give us a breather. But sleep? That wasn't happening. Every creak of the building kept us wired. Around 9:30 a.m., the phone jolted us again. Name's Carly. A woman said, her voice steady but edged with strain. I'm on the top floor of a motel off the interstate. Parking lot's a mess. Maybe 20 of them down there, pacing in loops. They'll chase anything that moves. Watched some people try to peel out in a truck. Didn't make it 50 feet. You safe up there? I asked, leaning into the mic. For now, glad you're still on. Means I'm not totally alone. Her words hit me like a punch. We weren't just a signal. We were a lifeline, a fading thread of normal in a world gone mad. I thanked her, switched back to the loop, and slumped in my chair. Fatigue was dragging at me, but every time my eyes drifted shut, I'd hear a thud or a scrape. Real or imagined, I couldn't tell. By 10:45 a.m., the sun was up, but it didn't feel like day. Lena had crashed for a quick nap in the control room, head resting on a pile of station logs. Ray was stalking the halls, peering out windows like a caged animal. I flicked the mic on for one last live update before the loop took over. Jace here, WXRV, coming up on 11 a.m. If you're out there, hang tight. Stay indoors, keep quiet, don't tangle with anyone who looks off. We're still here, but it's rough. Stay smart, stay alive. As I finished, a dull thunk echoed somewhere in the building, followed by a faint dragging sound. My hand froze on the mic. Lena stirred, eyes snapping open. Ray's boots pounded down the hall, and he pressed his face to the glass, mouthing something frantic I couldn't hear. I killed the mic and cracked the booth door. Ray, what's up? I hissed. Saw something, someone, in the break room. Slipped in fast, didn't get a good look. His voice was shaking. Survivor? Lena asked, creeping up behind me. Maybe, Ray muttered, but I'm not betting on it. Armed with nothing but flashlights and raw nerves, we edged down the corridor. The break room door was half open, lights off despite us leaving them on. My beam swept the space. Table, chairs, vending machine, all still. Then a shadow shifted in the corner, and a low groan filled the air. I froze, fight or flight screaming in my head, but I forced myself to hold steady. The figure stumbled forward into the light. A guy, clutching his side, blood seeping through his fingers. A keycard dangled from his neck. Eddie, one of our day shift techs. I hadn't even known he was here. He rasped, trying to speak, then crumpled. Instinct kicked in. I lunged to help, but Ray grabbed my arm. Careful, Jace. He's hurt. We can't just leave him. I snapped, kneeling beside Eddie. Lena's flashlight caught his face, pale, eyes flickering. He croaked out 2 words, bit me. Ice flooded my veins. Every call, every story said the same. A bite wasn't just an injury, it was a countdown. But he was still Eddie, still conscious, staring up at me with terror and trust. Help, he wheezed, hand clutching my sleeve. Ray hovered, tense. Lena darted off for a first aid kit, but Eddie's breaths were shallowing fast. We hauled him to the break room couch, propping him up, helpless as his eyes fluttered. Ray stayed by the door, watching him like a hawk. Lena and I retreated to the booth, hearts pounding. It was 11:30 a.m. when I hit the mic again. Jace, WXRV. We've got a survivor here, hurt bad. We're doing what we can, but the clock's ticking, generators fading, and the danger's close. If you're listening, stay safe, stay away from the infected. There's still hope. We're hanging on. I cut to the loop, sinking into my chair. Lena squeezed my shoulder, a silent anchor. Down the hall, Ray's voice murmured to Eddie, keeping him grounded. 12 hours in, and the nightmare was clawing at our walls. We weren't giving up, not yet. It was pushing 11:45 a.m. when I slumped back into the broadcast chair, the weight of the night pressing down like a lead blanket. Eddie, our wounded tech, was sprawled on the break room couch, breath shallow and jagged. His "bit me" confession echoed in my head, a ticking bomb we couldn't defuse. Lena was pacing the control room, her flashlight beam jittering across the walls. Ray stood watch over Eddie, tense as a coiled spring, muttering encouragements to keep him with us. The generator hummed faintly in the background, but the fuel gauge was dipping into the red. Outside, the wind rattled the trees, carrying faint echoes of chaos, sirens, shouts, something deeper I couldn't place. I flipped the mic on for what I figured might be my last live words. This is Jace, WXRV, still hanging on near noon. We've got an injured man here, one of our own. We're trying to help him, but time's running short. Our power's fading, and whatever's out there is closing in. To anyone listening, keep your heads down. Avoid anyone who's been hurt by these things. We're still here, still fighting. Don't give up. I switched back to the emergency loop, my recorded voice droning survival tips, and leaned back, throat raw. Lena slipped into the booth, her face drawn tight. He's slipping, she said, nodding toward the break room. What do we do if he changes? I rubbed my eyes, exhaustion blurring the edges. We don't know how long it takes, or if it's certain. He's still Eddie. We can't just... I stopped, the words too heavy to finish. Abandon him? Tie him up? Neither felt right, but neither did pretending everything was fine. The phone rang again, cutting through the tension like a knife. Lena patched it through, and a shaky voice crackled over the line. This is Paul, the guy said, winded. I'm in a pawn shop downtown, boarded up in the back. They're outside, dozens of them, smashing windows, clawing at the walls. I saw my buddy get grabbed. He's one of them now. His voice broke. You're the only thing on the air, man. Don't stop. We're trying, I said, forcing steadiness I didn't feel. You safe in there? For now. Barricades holding, but they don't quit. If you're still broadcasting, it means there's hope, right? The line fizzed out before I could answer. His words stuck with me. Hope. That's what we were, a faint pulse in a dying city. But with Eddie fading and the generator gasping, hope felt like a threadbare lie. Around noon, the 12-hour mark hit. I scribbled in a beat-up notebook, jotting down everything. Travis's first call, Jordan's highway horror, Carly's motel siege. It was a lifeline, a way to keep my head straight when the walls felt like they were closing in. The phone lines still chirped now and then, but the calls were thinning out. One woman just sobbed until the connection dropped. Another guy rambled about shadows in his basement before a crash ended it. Each one was a gut punch, a reminder of how alone we were becoming. Outside, the trees swayed, and every rustle made me jump. Were those footsteps? Voices? Or just my mind fraying? Ray poked his head in, face grim. Eddie's still breathing, but it's bad. Fever's spiking, and he's muttering. Nothing I can make out. He hesitated. Fence took another hit out back. Louder this time. You see anything? I asked, dread creeping up my spine. Nope. Too quick. But they're testing us. They hung heavy. Those things, the infected, whatever they were. Our locked doors and tall fence were all that stood between us and them, and neither felt solid anymore. Lena dug through a storage closet, piling up what she could find. A few more water bottles, a bag of pretzels, a flashlight with dying batteries. Day or two, tops, she said, eyeing the stash. Then it's the generator we've got to worry about. She was right. When that tank ran dry, we'd lose everything. Lights, signal, the hum that kept us sane. The emergency alerts on the TV were still looping, a robotic voice reciting the same useless orders. Remain indoors. Await instructions. No cavalry, no updates, just static and silence from the authorities. I kept the mic off, letting the loop run, and sank into my chair. My hands shook, not from cold, but from the relentless grind of it all. At 12:30 p.m., Eddie groaned loud enough to carry down the hall. Ray bolted back to the break room, Lena and I trailing close. He was thrashing on the couch, eyes half open, sweat beading on his forehead. His hand still clutched at the bloody stain on his side. "Eddie, you with us?" I asked, kneeling beside him. His gaze flicked to me, cloudy but aware. "Hurts," he croaked. Don't let me." He didn't finish, slipping back into a fitful haze. Ray gripped his flashlight like a club, ready to swing if it came to it. Lena clutched the first aid kit, useless against whatever was eating him from the inside. We propped him up with a spare jacket, but his breathing was a wet rattle now. Every story we'd heard said the bitten turned. Travis, Paul, all of them. But seeing it up close was a different beast. "We can't just sit here," Lena whispered, voice tight. "If he turns." "We don't know if." I snapped, sharper than I meant. "He's still fighting. But doubt not at me." How long could we hold out, playing nurse to a time bomb while the world burned? The generator chugged on, a faint lifeline, but the gauge was a hair above empty. One more hour, maybe two, and we'd be in the dark, literally. By 1 p.m., the sun was high, but the day felt like a lie. The city's noise had dulled to a low roar, punctuated by bursts of chaos, distant pops, a scream cut short. The phone rang again, and I lunged for it, desperate for anything to break the spiral. "This is Mia," a girl said, barely a whisper. "I'm in my attic, up on Pine Street. They're downstairs, my parents, I think. They got in through the back door." "Mia, you safe up there?" I asked, heart hammering. "Yeah, hatch is locked. But I hear them moving. They don't sound right." Her voice trembled. "You're the only one left on the radio. Please don't go off." "We're here," I said, gripping the mic. "Stay quiet, stay put. We're not giving up." The call dropped, and I stared at the console, her plea ringing in my ears. Lena watched me, eyes hollow. Ray called from the break room. "He's out cold again, still alive, but barely." At 1:30 p.m., the generator sputtered, a hiccup that made us all freeze. The lights dimmed, rallied, then held. "That's the warning shot," Lena said, checking the tank. "We're on borrowed time." We huddled in the control room, mapping out what little we had left. Ray suggested rigging the fence with noise, cans, anything to warn us if they breached it. Lena wanted to conserve the last drops of fuel for one final broadcast. I just kept writing, scribbling every detail in case someone, someday, found it. Then, at 1:45 p.m., a crash rocked the building. Not the fence, but inside. Ray grabbed his flashlight and bolted toward the sound, me and Lena on his heels. It came from the back hall, near the storage room. The door was ajar, and inside, a figure hunched over a spilled box of cables. Eddie. He'd dragged himself off the couch, eyes glassy, movements jerky. "Eddie," I called, voice shaking. He turned, slow, and I saw it. His skin graying, lips stained dark. He lunged, a guttural snarl ripping from his throat. Ray shoved me back, swinging the flashlight. It cracked against Eddie's shoulder, but he barely flinched. Lena screamed, and I yanked her toward the booth, Ray slamming the door behind us. We barricaded it with a chair, hearts pounding as Eddie, or what used to be Eddie, slammed against it. The The wood held, but the sound was a death knell. "He's gone," Ray panted, face ashen. "We can't stay." The generator coughed again, and the lights flickered out for good. Darkness swallowed us, save for the emergency bulb's faint glow. I stumbled to the mic, flipped it on with the last juice we had. "Jace, WXRV, signing off. It's past 2 p.m. We've lost power, lost one of our own. If you're out there, don't stop fighting. Hide, survive. This might be it for us, but you're not alone." The signal died as I spoke, plunging us into silence. We locked the booth, Eddie's thuds fading as he wandered off. The fence rattled outside, more of them, drawn by the noise. Fuel gone, signal gone. We were 3 souls in a tomb, clinging to a notebook and a prayer. 12 hours had shattered everything, and all we could do was wait. For rescue, for sunrise, for the end. To anyone hearing this echo, hold on. We're still here, somehow. Keep listening. The quiet's where the real story hides. Well, there you have it, folks. The end of a 12-hour descent into a world turned upside down. What started as a quiet night in the booth spiraled into a fight for survival, a signal fading against the chaos. It's the kind of story that leaves you wondering, what would you do when the static turns to screams? I hope it gave you a shiver, maybe kept you up a little longer, scanning the shadows. That's the magic of these tales. They pull us into the unknown and make us question the quiet moments we take for granted. If this journey gripped you, smash that thumbs up and hit subscribe. It's what keeps this channel's signal alive in the dark. Drop a comment too. Tell me where you'd hole up if the world went quiet like that. Your support fuels more stories, more nights of peering into the abyss together. So stick around, keep your dial tuned, and let's face the next mystery as it crackles through the airwaves. Until then, stay vigilant. The real horror might be closer than you think.